Welcome to Will AI Snap That. My name is Michael Rollins, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Thanos, he of the Snapdom. And we are here today to tell you how to survive the impending robotic apocalypse. Thanos, how are you doing, sir?
Super special wind today, so good kiting session. I think I did 63 jumps in like about an hour, so
Nice.
yeah, pretty happy.
How do your old bones handle that?
Actually, bones are like muscles. The more you like use them, the better they get. Apparently, osteoporosis is a childhood disease. If you didn't like do stuff with your bones when you were a kid, you kind of
Interesting.
like have problems when you're grown up.
I did not know that. Yeah, and
Apparently, that's the thing.
it does make a bit of sense. So,
Yeah,
um,
you have to still nail the landings. That's a thing. But
look,
I did a 3.7 meter today, which I landed, so I'm pretty
there
happy
you go. There you go.
as far as
The
jumps go.
the hardest I have ever hit my head was on the water. I was wakeboarding and doing you know how like I'm goofy foot, right? Which I at this point, yeah, left foot back,
Right foot first. Is that your
right foot
goofy?
foot back. But when you're wakeboarding, you have to cross back and forth. And I'm assuming in kiteboarding you have to do the same thing. And I was practicing, and my guys in the boat were pulling me very fast. And in one of my turns, I caught that leading edge, and it turned my head into a pendulum.
Are you in like straps in a wakeboard or in like booties? What does the
Yeah,
foot to the board
you're
attachment
in
look like?
booties. So it basically
Ooh,
turned the wakeboard into a pivot, and my head was at the end of the pivot. Wham! I
yeah.
came out of the
Surface tension
water.
is a thing.
It's
Ouch.
like what the hell just happened? Though the hardest I have ever fallen was snowboarding, and I
Well,
was
yeah, that's
oh this one was I learned things about my body on this one. So I was snowboarding, and we were with my kids, and we were at this freaking mountain called Massanutten here locally. It is the absolute most awful place to snowboard ever, right? It's got this flat land, and then everything's icy. And so I was watching one of my children as they were coming down the mountain, and I was trying to coach them through. So I'm like edge up the
are
slope,
you
and
like yelling up the mountain or is some kind of radio involved?
just more or less trying to make sure they don't die. And
And you're doing this how from the bottom of the mountain? I'm
yelling,
just
no,
trying to
no,
follow the
no.
mechanics here.
I'm just a few 20, 30 yards in front of them at most.
Oh, you're
And
skiing down with him. Okay,
yeah, and
that
I'm
makes more
on,
sense.
I'm on my toes. I'm facing back up the slope, and
Oh,
I
okay,
don't
that's
know. And it was a pretty steep grade. I don't know what happened, but I caught my back edge, and it was steep. This is
I think you know what happened.
I did something stupid. I caught my back edge.
Yeah, skiing backwards.
Yeah, and no, you can do that all the time is on a snowboard. Like it's easy, except when it's not.
Oh, you're on a
I was on a
snowboard.
snowboard.
It's
Yeah,
You're just adding the piece of information here like one at a
I
time.
told you it was a snowboard. Anyways, long story short, I landed on my butt. I have never hit my butt that hard. And the number of experiences that my butt, surprising experiences that my
Oof,
body
oof,
went
oof.
through. What is happening?
Oh dear.
No,
Ouch.
it almost didn't hurt my butt, but my head hurt, my inside. Oh man, it was awful.
Yeah.
So
It does not get better as you get older.
no, it doesn't. It doesn't. And
Yeah.
sometimes it sticks with you like a rash. So today we got a really,
We're going to talk about injuries while doing board sports, right?
yeah, that is it, and how AI
Yes.
is not going to fix that.
Okay.
It,
Damn it.
I,
I
I,
had high hopes.
I tell people at the moment who do physical jobs, replace tradecraft and whatnot. I'm like, your job is safe, at least right now, as long as Elon doesn't release like Optimus, which he probably won't because it was people in a bodysuit. Okay, so today we have a very exciting topic, Thanos, and that topic is that Anthropic is at war, and they are at war with Cursor. It is a
You're going to say Putin, and I'm like, glad we dodged
no,
out.
yeah, no, I can say Putin with Iran. No, that is not what's happening. So, what's really interesting about the entire story is that both Anthropic and Cursor are wildly successful and struggling for cash. The rumor is that Anthropic, while they have a $4 billion run rate on revenue, $4 billion, but they have $500 million a month in computing costs. And if you do the math, 6 billion is greater than 4 billion. So they're in and OpenAI is in a similar position, but Sam Altman is apparently able to raise money with a wink and a nod. So Anthropic has found itself in this place where it looks like they may have a cash flow crunch. And their biggest customer is Cursor. Now, what's interesting about Cursor is that Cursor, once again, another startup, I think they've got maybe $500 million in revenue a year, also burning cash. And recently, this weird stuff started happening with Cursor. Cursor all of a sudden, more or less, canceled a bunch of plans. They had sold, if you pay the $20, you get this much. If you pay $100, you get this much. And they basically reduced all of the stuff you get off of those plans.
But this much and that much was a bit hand
Yeah. There was like,
you get some kind of requests of ambiguous amounts of context and some tokens. I don't think any tokens were mentioned.
Yeah, well, but they cut it significantly to the point where the entire Cursor Reddit is freaking out. They never communicated it well. Then they made a second change, and it has just been a complete disaster over there.
They had to go down some limits and to go refund a bunch of people, and it was a big fat mess.
Yeah, it was in there. We need to do better. And it's, yeah, you do.
Yes, you do.
You certainly do. Like, this definitely was avoidable.
So can we start by the parts that I don't get here?
Okay.
So I use Rue, and there's other VS Code plugins like Klein, and they more or less do the same thing that Claude Code does. Sorry, Cursor does.
Cursor does, yeah.
And Claude Code, but like Cursor for the purpose of this discussion. Maybe they have some slightly better prompts, but I got some pretty good prompts that I've injected in there.
Yeah.
What's the benefit of Cursor? Like, why is Cursor valued so highly, and where is their advantage here compared to everyone else? And what is the moat that is defensible here? Because they're basically passing through everything to like Anthropic and OpenAI and the other models of this world that I think most people use. Like,
I honestly don't think there is a moat. I think that the idea of Cursor is basically just a VS Code wrapper on top of somebody else's service. They are.
And is it easier for a company or corporate buyer to say, "Oh, we're buying Cursor," and there's like a company behind it, and it works the same for everyone, as opposed to, "Hey, everyone should just download like this tool and install it with these commands and put your key over here."
Right.
And yeah, we're gonna have to buy those keys separately, and there's no process. Is that the value add? And I'm sure there's a lot of smart people doing a lot of interesting things in there, but like from a strategic perspective, how does that really help?
The Cursor, I don't know if it was the first mover, but it was the first to gain significant momentum. And since
it was Codium which is now Windsurf, that was, I think,
they were
first.
They may have been first, but for whatever reason, Cursor.
I can show you the reason because I used it.
Oh, have you?
It was unusable. It would
Codium?
just crash and burn and die the whole time, and it was just I paid for it and I did the whole thing, and like I lasted like just a couple of weeks and I was like, you know what, I'm canceling this stuff. It was just unbearably awful, and there was no support and any of that stuff. Cursor is a pretty good tool. Like, it works.
It is, and it's still just like a VS Code wrapper, right?
Yeah. Have you asked it about the elections?
Oh God. No, I tend not to.
Because it has specific things for the elections. We talked about this.
Yeah, I've not. Well, I'm saying I've not asked it for elections. So, but here's the thing: Cursor is Anthropic's largest customer for Claude Code, to the point where it's not even close. It is a significant. I think it may be 10 or more % higher than anybody else, and it could be up to half of the inference that they're running is from Cursor. So this is setting the stage, right?
Are they charging them at not a profitable rate? Are they losing money as they're charging in the Cursor? That would be insane.
And Anthropic has to be losing money on every call. There's almost like a bunch of people have done some math and looked at everything, and they're like, this doesn't add up. Like it's very obvious that they're losing money because their inference costs are, or their total compute costs is $500 million a month, and they're only a 4 billion year per year revenue company, right? They're losing money. It's
No, but
also
if they're
highly
charging,
likely that they're losing
yeah,
money on each and every call.
well, there's degrees there, right? Are they losing a lot of money or a little money in every call? And
I don't know. I don't know that
you
anybody
know the
will
old
say.
joke from the .com days, right? They're just going to make it up on volume.
I honestly, yes. That's now. Here's the thing. That thinking still prevails, right? And now at this moment, it's there's a lot of talk that Amazon is about to double down yet again on Anthropic, and probably a good bet. I'm not gonna lie. Anthropic really seems to be leading at this moment, even if ChatGPT has the mind share in terms of the public.
Yeah. Look, I don't really want to be paying more, but if they're losing like a little money and my $200 a month would become $250 a month,
Yeah,
that would not be a big deal. Like even if it became $500 a month, that's probably still worthwhile.
we'll get to that. Apparently, there is a set of tools that a bunch of engineers have built to effectively maximize all tokens that can be used in a day from Claude Code, including timers and estimates on when you're going to run out. And
Is it day based? You get this
it
many
is.
per day?
Yeah. Yeah. So what they basically do
So do you
is,
have to work on weekends to get the most out of this? That would be insane.
I don't know. I know that there is a daily limit, and if you go over the daily limit, the answer is you can pay for these calls now. But the daily
Do they
limit,
have a wind schedule? If it's not blowing outside, then I can get more tokens, and if it's really blowing outside, I can save my tokens for the next day.
I
Because
don't know.
that'd be the kite surfing version of
I
this.
don't know. But
Do they take feature requests?
Anthropic?
Yeah,
I
suggest that
maybe
as a pricing idea. Just
maybe
saying.
make the wind greater, or
No,
saving,
no, yeah. If you can make the wind greater, then I'd never get to
yeah,
work.
or
But
saving
uh,
tokens. Like it's not in their interest to
I
save.
want to work on non-windy days.
Yeah, no, it's not in their interest to roll tokens over because they're probably losing money on each token, even if it's a fraction, right? So, they're off to the side. There's this entire ecosystem of engineers who have built these tools, and they just run Claude Code 24/7 as much as they can in autonomous mode, like full agentic. And they will hand it a task, and when it's done with the task, there's like all kinds of systems in play, and it's a brilliant idea. It's a brilliant idea. That's a probably that's a part of the problem. I don't know if it's a significant part of the problem, but let's circle back to these two companies that are currently struggling for cash. So recently, Anthropic started raising prices, and they're raising prices in order to recoup money. And they raised them pretty significantly on Cursor. I don't know if this is a price raise across the board. I don't know if this is a price raise based on usage. Like, I have not been able to find that. I'm assuming it's across the board. And that price raise is what caused Cursor to like freak out. Okay, so all of a sudden Cursor was bleeding money, and that's when they did all these shenanigans. And then Anthropic raised the price again, and it started this second wave. And it's weird. It's really weird because it sounds like Anthropic caught Cursor by surprise. And you would assume that if Cursor is their largest user, they would not catch them by surprise. I mean, it's if the person that is paying you the most money in some capacity is going to be startled by an action you're going to take, that probably doesn't work out, right? That breaks
Well,
trust.
yes and no, right? Because if you're losing money on every request, then if you lose your biggest customer, you're not actually making more money.
I'm gonna hold on. I'm gonna parse
Because
that.
you're losing less money.
Yeah, but I get what you're
That's the
what you're
weird thing of losing money on every request is
right. I get what you're saying, but I feel like reducing the amount of money you're losing on every call while keeping the same volume is probably a better state of affairs.
but that's if you're raising prices, you're basically trying to constrain the demand,
You're doing, yeah, you're
right?
doing
So
something.
you're gonna lose customers, and the hope is by making more from everyone that stays, you're gonna make more overall, or make more than you're making before.
I am certain there's an
So
incredible amount of economic and game theory that goes into this. Like,
now,
however,
should you surprise your biggest customer and cause embarrassment and all that? That's an interesting business practice that.
it is, isn't it? That is weird. And
But one of the things that I learned when I was working for the big companies is the saying that says never attribute to malice what you can attribute to incompetence or some
yeah,
variant
I
of
never
that.
attribute the malice.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
attribute.
Probably Bob forget to hit send on that email and it's oh shit, we didn't tell you guys about the price increase. Sorry.
So, well, no, it's not just like the email didn't land. The way it sounds is like Anthropic got a, or Cursor looked at their usage and their bill and was like, WTF, mate? Like, what just happened? It seems like they were caught completely unawares. Maybe they weren't. I don't know. But they did not have
Or
a
maybe
lot.
Cursor never looked at their dashboard for their bill for the next month and
So here's the other thing.
that's what happens when you do a 10% increase on the raise on the rates.
So, but
Crap.
maybe we can infer a little malice on this one. Here's the thing. Claude Code is considered at this point to be the best coding tool in the story. Everybody who has used all of them and then comes back to people keep saying I keep coming back to Claude Code. There's a lot of reasons for that. It is the best at tool usage. It has extraordinary MCP integrations and it's really good at using the MCP integrations. The fact that it's in the command line and now that you can do slash IDE and connect to an open IDE so you can get more of the like cursor experience, and the fact that you just go pay a flat rate even if it's 200 bucks a month and you can do unlimited stuff, right? Claude Code is more or less starting to be considered the best to do your stuff in, which puts them in direct competition with Cursor, who has the most. Now, that in and of itself is probably not a big deal. Companies compete and buy from each other all the time. However, Cursor recently poached two very important people from the Claude Code team. One of them was the lead engineer, and the other was, I think, the lead product manager. They poached them, they pulled them in, and they made them either like VP or C level people in the company and basically gave them way more control over Cursor. And after this happened is when all the pricing weirdness started happening. I think that some of this may just have been happenstance, right? You got two companies, they're hemorrhaging money, they're trying to bring stuff in. But I wouldn't be surprised if somebody was over there going, yeah, fuck them. Raise it again. Like, I can see it happening. And it is actually very uncommon for Anthropic to lose people. There was some talk about I was in another podcast I listened to, the ratio of exchange between OpenAI and Anthropic in terms of engineers is 8-1 in favor of Anthropic. People really don't tend to leave Anthropic. And so poaching those two people is like a huge issue because maybe that opens the floodgates. All right, here's
But
my.
if your entire moat is centered around keeping two specific people, maybe you have a little bit of a problem.
I don't think it is centered around that, but I think it definitely.
Well, but if it's hurting them that much,
Okay, so
uh,
first off, do not discount in any way, shape, or form the egos of the people that are involved in this story, because Meta Mark Zuckerberg over here is out aggressively hiring people away just because he can, right? So when you find out that your largest customer, somewhat your competitor, has just hired away two very important people, and it's not like the project's going to collapse, right? But if they're the engineering lead and the thinking lead, that's not easily replaceable, right?
yeah, I guess if I had $4 billion in the bank, I wouldn't sure where to find a lead product guy or girl.
Obviously you can. But but look, basically,
I can accept that they went into a pissing contest about this,
yes.
the same way that was the WordPress people were at it
Oh,
like a
no,
while
that
back.
was so bad. What is it?
Is can this possibly be consequential? I don't know.
Yeah. The WordPress thing. Wow. What a way to torture
Yeah,
reputation.
that was just wow.
What a
Like, you
way.
people need
That
help.
homeboy had such an incredible reputation and he just burned it all to the ground for spite.
Speaking of crazy people, there's apparently a interview out there with DHH and Lex Friedman that goes on for 6 hours, and I don't think I could take that. I don't think I could take either of these two for 5 minutes, not to mention like 6 hours.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
There have now turning the thing completely to the side. There have been some pretty wild podcast interviews recently. The greatest of which was Peter Thiel.
Peter Thiel.
Oh my God. I don't okay. The podcaster asks a very simple question to which there is no other answer but yes. Do you
Is there much surprise that Peter Thiel and Elon Musk get along or got along?
Oh no, but they okay, hold on, we'll get into that. The podcaster goes, "Do you think the human race should survive?" And Peter Thiel goes, he is now answered wrongly. I don't
I mean,
understand.
it's a dumb question, but
But wait. So the podcaster goes,
actually, I don't know if it's a really good question because maybe it elicited the response or some interesting response the interviewer was hoping for.
that really feels like you shouldn't have to think this long about it. Are you sure you don't just want to say yes? And he goes, well, and then the podcaster, so you don't think the human race should survive? And he goes, I mean, it's just really complex. And I'm like, at this point, there's some PR guy in the background screaming, shut it down, shut it down. No, we can't do
No, I
this.
think Peter Thiel has a don't give a fuck and I shall use it kind of money.
Yeah, no. He absolutely does.
Because other people have I don't give a fuck money, but choose not to use it for crazy things. But he's cool.
Yeah, but that's like a psychopathic tell.
Newspaper pissed me off. Cool. I'll shut him
mean,
down.
it's straight up a psychopathic tell. Like, when asked if the species that you belong to should survive, and your answer is a deep intake and silence for a little while,
You're assuming he associates with a human species.
that's what I'm saying. This is
He probably
psychopathic,
thinks he's smarter than everyone.
which is a
Yeah,
psychopathic
and is a different
tell.
species.
I'm not saying the guy's a psychopath, but I can't disprove it right at this very moment. So, anyways, that was wild. Where were we?
Anthropic versus
Yeah, and okay. So,
Cursor.
do you think there is any plausibility that hurt feelings and egos contributed to this drama?
Let me grab my popcorn and think about this question. This is hard to tell with the information that we have.
I know.
I'm just fascinated to see this because it's like unlike the previous Web 3.0 Bitcoin revolution, I think this one still has legs in it. But there's obviously when companies that have 4 billion in the bank are having a cash flow problem, it's kind of okay. What's going on here?
How much is Anthropic raised at this point? It's insane. Or sorry, OpenAI.
Did you know, by the way, that was pre-seed? They're going to do a Series A next week.
I,
No, I'm joking.
I mean, but does it even matter at this point?
Rounds are making even less and less sense nowadays.
Exactly.
But no, it's going to be interesting where this thing like plays out. Does Cursor, is that sort of an ongoing concern? Windsurf, it was in trouble. The OpenAI thing fell through, and now they're getting
Google hired away.
and they're getting pushed by Google. Is there really, again, I no doubt there's a bunch of really smart people working on really interesting problems in there. Now there's a dozen tools that more or less do the same thing. Is the slight differences in prompts making the huge difference? They're all using the same underlying model, so is that making a difference?
Yeah. If I'm not OpenAI and I'm not Anthropic and I'm building a tool that is wrapping one of their services, I'm concerned.
No, but also look at it this way. So I use a tool called Super Whisper that you just press a button and yap to your computer and it just types it out. And my internet connection here was a little laggy, so it was taking a while. So I just got annoyed and downloaded the 3 gig local version, and it's 10 out of 10 for speed, but it's 8 out of 10 instead of 10 out of 10 for like accuracy.
Right.
And it works freaking great.
Sure.
Like no difference. And it's all running locally. So at some point, if all these cloud hosted engines that do inference, maybe I can run with a hefty machine that maybe cost me $2,000. I can run this locally at 80% of the capacity and not cost me 200 or 500 bucks a month.
Mm-hmm.
And that's paid for itself.
And so I actually think I think about this a lot, because if you are in, like, when it comes to something that's high tech, right? If you chase the leading edge, if you chase the bleeding edge, it's expensive. So if I'm sitting here and, like, I love new phones, but it would make a lot more economic sense for me to buy last year's model as opposed to this year's model, because I can probably buy it used. I can probably get it at a discount, right? And
Do they give out Androids for free nowadays?
yeah, but that's only if you want to enslave your soul to, like, Verizon or AT&T or T-Mobile. So, but here's the thing. I keep thinking about okay, we're on Claude 4, right? If we get to a place where I could run Claude 4 Opus locally, is that good enough? Or am I going to feel or be slower and lose some kind of competitive advantage because Claude 5 Opus is just that much better, right?
So I'm gonna go back and use Claude Code and tell you what I think about it.
Okay.
Maybe use it for a week. But my sense is that my slightly improved prompting of like work in small batches and my usage of the tools in a certain way
Mm-hmm.
would probably do just fine with almost any model.
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
any reasonable model. Okay, don't give me like a really limited piece of crap, but
I mean, but
give me like Sonnet 3.5 and I'm probably gonna be okay. Right? So yeah, so I think it's gonna get better, it's gonna get cheaper, and I think that problem is gonna disappear itself out of existence.
I guess have you used Claude Code's planning mode?
I used Claude Code, I don't know, like ages and ages ago, maybe 2 months.
Okay. When you
3 months.
let me know what you find. Claude Code has this planning mode now, and in the planning mode, you tell it what you want it to do. It then goes off and does its thing. Then it comes back and it gives you a multi-step plan. You can alter the plan and do various things, right? And then eventually, once you agree with the robot that this is what you should do, you hit enter and it just spins away. If it needs to make any very specific types of tool calls, it'll stop and it'll prompt you. But even a lot of those, you can just throw it into YOLO mode, because a lot of them, I'm going to change directories and then I'm going to list this and then I'm going to do that, right? I noticed it spends a lot of time. Well, I'll get there. So it'll run through this whole process, and oftentimes the last step in that process is it spins up a script to just test everything it just did. And the last step is, a lot of times, hey, can I run this script? And you get the printout of what's in the script, and then you like, all right, go for it. You hit the button and it runs and it tests the script. And if the script is successful, it settles itself down and asks you what you want to do next. And if it's not successful, it sits there and debugs it until it fixes it. It's pretty wild. And
I don't think that would work for me.
I don't know if it would. Yeah, like this is the kind of...
And I'll tell you why, because I think that's the interesting part of this whole thing,
Yeah.
which is, by the way, the latest version of Rue, which is my tool of choice nowadays, also does the same thing now as of like last week.
Mm-hmm.
You give it what you want to do in code mode, and it will give you a to-do list.
Yeah.
And it's a nice little table with checkboxes.
Yeah,
like you
but
can go edit each box. It's cute.
This isn't that.
Of how you...
Claude Code's done that for a long.
Wait.
Go ahead.
Bear with me for a second, Larry, because I think it's nice to see to-do list because it gives you like the steps that it thinks in. But the problem that we have with this AI generated code is that we don't understand what it does, right? And then eventually, when it gets itself into a tizzy, you need to be able to understand what it does to help guide it through this. So what I found huge success with is my custom crafted prompt basically says, I'm a human, I am dumb as shit, so I need to, when you give me code to review, you need to give it to me in really, really small chunks, because my brain is like this big. Yours is this big, mine is like literally this big. So I want to see one thing at a time and optimize for me understanding what the hell you're doing. So then I can develop myself a mental model of what you did. Now, if you go in agent mode and you spit me out like 2,000 lines of code and I don't know where it begins and where it ends,
Right.
it's going to be impossible for me to verify this. And yes, we've talked about maybe you could verify the unit test and see how it works.
Hmm.
Sometimes you can, sometimes it's harder to do it that way. Not all the code is
Hmm.
written in a way that it's unit testable, right? So one of the things I like to do is write like pure functions, and then I can go and test those pure functions by themselves and have the side effects at the beginning and the end,
Hmm.
so it's easier to inject. But if you send an agent mode, I'm gonna guess it probably wouldn't come up with something that you could do it in this way. So optimizing for this verifiability, I think, is super necessary. Now, again, I'm not averse to when the agents get good enough to listen to my instructions and follow them and all that stuff to let them run for longer. But so far, whenever you give it like a little bit of rope, it actually goes and hangs itself. Like I was actually with this the other day, and it just like got a little like out of hand where I didn't understand something going on there, and then it got stuck, and I had to go back and see, okay, you know what, that thing I didn't understand, that was actually a problem, and I'll clean it up this way, and then we can go and repair ourselves from there.
So this is what it's doing at this point is actually it's a lot more than a to-do list because it creates the to-do list and then it will go through each part of that to-do list and explain the implementation details that it's going to do, explain the files that it's going to do it in, explain the lines of code it often that it's going to change. And so it's doing a lot of the stuff up front that you're talking about. And then once you approve it, then it just starts clicking away. But yes, it will.
It sounds like it's doing it without actually doing it, right? You know, again, I've
Yeah,
seen this
it plans
before
that.
with the
Yeah,
planning mode in Rue as well,
yeah.
where you say, I'm interested in building this, and then it just basically builds it, but in little tiny chunks that I get to the right third of my screen
Hmm.
only. And it's like, yeah, dude, I can't see it in here. Why don't you like take each of these and build them one at a time, but in
Yeah.
the big middle window where I can
Hmm.
actually see all the deltas
Yeah.
and do all that there. So again, I think it goes back to, and again, this is something we've talked about, how the agents solve the bottleneck of typing the code and
Hmm.
matching like all the API calls with each other and doing like silly transformations that we didn't do by hand.
Hmm.
But I think the part that, again, don't know for how long it's going to be true, but for now, humans are still better,
Hmm.
is figuring out what is the overall approach, right? You give me a feature idea, and I can go in my head how to build this in the safest, fastest possible way where I know what's happening with the right architecture and so on. So I don't know that I yet
Hmm.
trust it with that aspect of things.
So here's the thing that keeps me up when I do this. This is the thing that's in the back of my head going, oh man, how would I verify? And that's introducing some kind of security risk because I've caught it. Introducing a security risk, right? I've caught it trying to commit .env files. And I'm like, no, don't do that, right? I have found it doing things that are very subtle and very dangerous. And that is the thing that keeps me up. It's okay, well, why exactly did you pull a brand new library in to do this? And how old is that library? And it's, oh, well, this is super old node library. It's, no, we're not going to use that.
Yeah, it hasn't changed in 3 years, and it only does string pattern.
Yeah,
Why
it's
not?
fine. It's fine. And so there is the aspect of this where like the results I'm getting are actually really good in terms of the code. Yes, I have to go in periodically and pull through the code and kind of look at it and then a set of lines and be like, what were you doing here? Because you're being stupid.
What were you thinking?
Thinking. But like the other day, yeah, or yesterday, I've been working on this little MVP that's a long story. And I just sat down and I thought I could have written this entire thing and had it done in Go instead of Python. And I don't know that it would have made a difference to my ability to get this done because I'm just not in the code as much anymore. And it's a weird, weird feeling when all of a sudden you realize you're divorced from it feels a little wrong. And I know for you that would be very wrong, but it's it's strange.
Yeah, I think actually you might get it done faster in Go because in Python you don't have really good type support a lot of the times. So, and that is
Hmm.
like at the micro level, like you F up the thing and it doesn't compile in Go, it's going to go and fix it right away. Whereas in Python,
Yeah.
you're gonna figure out way to the right of that process,
That would be an interesting
and that's
experiment if to take some project and do a side by side kind of development. And do you get better results with strong typing with something with an agent? Because I bet you do, right?
Yeah, I bet you do. I bet you pretty much anything that you do.
Honest is like, we should type the world.
I'm seriously not even. I
I know
think you
you're not.
probably could do better experiments in that one because it's almost a guarantee. I've spent so much time fighting types with
Yeah,
untyped languages.
yeah. And
Yeah,
honestly, that
I think when Python first came out and I started using it, which must have been some in the mid aughts or something like that, it's like, oh, this type thing is so cool. I don't have to like type in the type of the thing, and it saves me so much time. And for the first 10 years or so, I still thought that. And somewhere in the mid tens, holy crap, that was a big mistake because now I have a 500,000 line code base over here, and I'm getting this string doesn't fit into an int.
it's like
No way to find out
here.
across 500,000 lines of code where you try to put strings and ints.
It
I don't know why we did that.
it's like the first time somebody ever realized that put in JavaScript that if you put the string one plus a variable that could potentially hold an int, that it does not do what you think it is going to do, and it will be super hard to debug, like wildly hard to figure out what's happening. And
JavaScript is a big pile of doo-doo when it comes to that, right? Because you can't compare types with each other. Oh, we can't make this equal to that, so let's make up a triple equals. What could go
why?
wrong?
Listen, Swift. I wish I could really actually use Swift on the web because it's just a better language with most of the same features, right? And it has that strong typing, even if they're
Yeah, I think Swift, Go, and all these guys
yeah.
are much easier, and I think they're just
Though
simply
I will
there's
say
a
that
few ways of doing things.
Swift's approach to optionals absolutely sucks. I hate it. Like
What is
the
Swift's approach to optionals?
it's been a while since I wrote in Swift, but effectively you end up decorating all of your function calls with types, right? And it's not in a and if you attempt, let's put it this way, writing without optionals is a lot easier in Swift, and the code is cleaner. But if you write with optionals, it's more powerful. The problem is it is so much harder to read because you're always unwrapping the optional and having to give a fallback in case the optional is empty or null, right?
Well,
And
but isn't like if the optional is null, then you don't unwrap it, you crash.
yeah,
That's a problem usually.
and also most of the time the compiler won't let you get away with that.
Yeah.
So anyways, long story short is it is like, even though it's a strongly typed language and it is a joy to write in and it has a lot of the features I love about JavaScript, it is, man, the optional stuff just makes you want to bang your head against a wall. Actually, after I left my last job, I went and interviewed for this company, and they I didn't pass their coding interview, right? And I was asking for feedback, and they were like, "You didn't even use optionals." And I was like, because they're a pain in the ass. And I got to move fast right now. I'm not going to sit here and fuck around with optionals when I got 30 minutes to write mini app in front of you. What are you even thinking? So I didn't get the job.
Yeah, it's annoying when like they don't set the expectations for okay, does this need to work in 30 minutes? Do you want production level code and you're okay if I get 10%?
Yeah.
Like where do you want the trade-off? Because I can write any way you like it.
Right.
Just need to understand what scenario we're running for here.
And the answer for what's your expectation is often, we just want to see your best code. And like I said, well, do you need fast? Do you need
All right.
good?
Then,
Right.
then we're going for production level quality,
And
and
then
we might get through 10% of your
yeah, yeah. And then
Hanoi tires of Hanoi problem.
And then the best part is afterwards, they tell you what their culture is. Oh, we're absolutely a TDD shop, and you didn't write any tests. So, well, not, I could have started that way if you had told me.
Could have used that information before.
I mean, anyways, we both know. I did try to take a shot at a company recently, and it was kind of like it was one of those. All right, the recruiter got back to me, and it's one of the big AI companies, and I got into the conversation with the recruiter. I never really went past that stage, and I told the recruiter, I was like, listen, you're going to ask me to sit here and do a bunch of leak code problems in Python. I really don't even write Python day to day at this point because the robot is doing it for me. And so in order for me to like actually bone up for your interview, I have to dedicate a lot of time to get good at something that I will then immediately stop doing. And I told him, I was like, if you want me to go off to this, if you want to give me 4 hours to write something from scratch and have it operational by the time I'm done, I can do it. Right. And if that's not more important to your engineering team and culture than being able to pass a Python test, I, I don't know what to tell you. And the recruiter was like, nobody's ever said it that way.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah.
But then didn't call you back, which is
No, actually, that was the interesting thing.
Oh, he did. Okay.
He did. And he offered, so he called me. So we ended up having a second call. And he said, I would like to go back to the hiring managers in this chain and make the case that you deserve an exception. And I was like, I really struggled and I wanted to just say yes. And finally I was like, man, it is not fair for you to make an exception for me when there's all these other engineers out here right now that are fighting tooth and nail to try and land a job like this because it's a bloodbath. And I said, if you guys get to the point where this becomes your process, call me again. And I stepped back. I just, man, it was hard. I was like,
Yeah.
this isn't right. Damn it. So, but yeah, man,
That was just you being way too nice.
it was. And I, you know what? There's another thing that that plays into it though, which is I'm building like in what I'm doing right now. I'm able to partake in multiple projects. I am building my own product. And when I work, because I'm a contractor with everybody, there's not a lot of dictating how I have to work. And I like that. Like, I like that. I like being my own boss. I'm the only dumbass I have to report to. And
As your wife.
well, yeah. No, she's not a dumbass though. I'm the dumbass. And there's an aspect of this where, man, it's good. Somebody I knew recently looked at me. He goes, "Well, now that you've been self-employed, you're ruined." And I was like,
Mhm.
"What do you mean?" He goes, "Because nobody's ever going to be able to tell you what to do again. And if you think it's stupid, you're going to duck your head and do it." I was like, "You have a point.
There's something to that.
You have a point, sir." So,
Yes.
not that I was good at that anyway.
Let me tell you about the self-employed kite surfing for the past
Yes,
month
I
or
would
so.
like to hear about that. Because that's what you do, right?
Kite by night, kite by day, work by night.
Yeah.
It's the life, man.
I do the same thing where I am most effective in the morning and in the evening. And so a lot of times I will front load my days with as much coding as I can get. I handle any kind of like administrative or meeting stuff for a couple hours in the middle of the day, and then I'll come back to the desk at 7, 8, 9 o'clock and work for another 3 or 4 hours. And I probably wouldn't get that freedom working some kind of 9 to 5, but my output's better.
And now with the AI stuff, I find I plug that in all sorts of places and it makes me so much faster.
God. Look, I'm going to eventually talk about the project, but I'll show you later. I have built something in 2 weekends that should have taken me a month or more.
This is seriously audience teasing, though. I think
It
we need
is.
to have a full
100%.
explanation on the next episode.
Yes, we will. And with one more weekend's worth of work, it won't be just a demo, or it's not a demo now, it's a proof of concept. It actually works, it does the thing. But with one more weekend, it will be an MVP. And
Yeah.
we're going to sell it. And we basically already have somebody we sold it to, right?
Nice.
Our good friend of the show, Peter, sold this thing like 3 weeks ago before it existed. And it's, yeah, Peter, we got that right now, baby.
Nice.
And then, all of a sudden it's, no, actually we have it. So anyways, but I'm like sitting here looking at this. I'm like, you couldn't do this a year ago.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the same thing, and it's going to be an article over the next few days. But I think it's when you have a solo practice, it is very, very possible to get like your 10x improvements because there are no other bottlenecks that you have, right? You are it. And if I want to change a product or something like that, I can just do it in my head in 5 minutes and off go coding it. So coding is truly the bottleneck that I have. When you have a team, you have communications overhead, you have all sorts of other activities that are done between the people that are part of that team. And those are usually the bottleneck. So if you code faster, you're just going to hit something else. And you're not going to go like 5% faster or 10% faster.
Right.
So it's just key to solve all the other fun stuff when you're working in a team environment. But when you're in a solo, yeah, those things matter still. Like you have to have like systems and processes down, but it's much easier for you to hit those 10x improvements with the AI, like building a very cool project in like a bunch of weekends.
So here's an actual honest question I like really, really want your answer to, as opposed to just humoring you like I normally do.
Michael, I hear the doorbell coming, ringing.
So, really? Um,
No,
if you, all right, so you were very, very good at organizing a team and keeping everybody going effectively with tooling, right? So if you were to take over a team and introduce, you found out that they're using AI in an ad hoc manner to write the code, would you standardize or would you just empower them to use their own tool better? What are your thoughts on that?
you're not going to get a straight answer out of me for that one because it depends till the end of time.
Right.
There's so start off with what we first said, right? So getting a team to be efficient through tooling. Yeah, that you can do that a little bit, right? But I think that's using tooling as the easy lever that you have to then reset culture and all that stuff, right? Because you can have strategy. Was it culture eats strategy for breakfast? Culture also eats tooling for breakfast. Culture eats a lot of things for breakfast.
Sure.
So there's limits of what you can achieve through tooling. Now with standardization, it depends what you're trying to achieve through standardization, right? And one of my favorite quips is when someone wants to refactor something to make it consistent. And I'm saying consistent is a characteristic, like it's green. It's not good, it's not bad. It's consistent. So you want to have the same tooling because you're consistent. What does consistent get you? Or you're telling me they're all the same color. But so what? Is it cheaper because everyone's using the same thing? Cool. That's one thing that happens. Is there less innovation because everyone's stuck with the same tool? Yes, that also happens. And there's other parameters that play in there. And I think you want to think carefully as to what you're trying to achieve and whether standardization is something that achieves that or goes the opposite direction. Classic things are standardizing too early. So you want to have different ideas and experimentations to find out what really works well. Once you have standardization, do you allow for experimentation within that? So is that it until the end of time? Or do you say, okay, if something better comes along, I can also use that better thing? If the company database is this and you want to use that because it's better for your use case, are you considering the costs of maintaining that thing yourself and who's going to deal with that and who's going to license it and who's going to do all that stuff? And if you are, good for you. And if you're not, like maybe you should.
Well, but I think into giant infrastructure questions, what database are you going to use? I think that's a slightly different. The question I'm asking here is more, would you ever dictate a specific AI tool to an engineering team, or would you let the engineering team each individually use the tool that they're most comfortable with?
I think it depends on why would I be, if I'm going in to say you should all use the same tool, what are my reasons for doing that? Is it because I don't want to manage 8 different solutions? Is it a 1,000 person company and I don't buy my 1,000 licenses? Or is it a
Well, I
3 person
got you.
company
Yeah.
and Bob and Joe need to use a different tool? And
Okay.
I might care differently depending on what the
Right.
situation is,
My thinking
right?
on.
If I have a 10 person team and it's not a huge deal for everyone to use their favorite tool. But if that 10 person team turns into a 30 person team, then someone's going to manage all that crap and it becomes expensive. So no, would I mind having 2 tools? Probably not. Would I mind having 10 tools? Probably yes.
My thinking, and part of the reason I asked this question is I have actually been turning it over in my head for a team I'm working with now, and I know that I can teach them and bring them up to speed on Claude Code just super fast, right? But I honestly don't know how much they're leveraging their own tools they're using now. And so it's just I'm not going to force anything on anybody, at least not at this point. But is really in the back of my head, I'm like, what is the answer to this? And obviously the answer is it depends. But
Well, I'll give you an answer. You prompted one thing. You said I could teach all of them how to use this tool.
mhm,
It's conceivable a problem you may have is people are not interested in learning new tools.
mm,
Because if you care about your own development and your productivity and all that stuff, you would be figuring out whatever tool you're using, and you would need Michael to teach you how this tool works. So then if that's the problem, then you might have different incentives or cultural things to change, as opposed to, okay, I'm just going to show you guys how to use this one tool. And if everyone uses this tool, life's going to be better, because that may not be the source of your problems.
okay, good, interesting.
There's a old thing that said if you make rules, you shouldn't reward people in specific things because you're going to game it. And my
Yeah.
response to that usually is like, gaming it would be the best thing that would happen because that means someone is paying attention and trying to
Yes.
follow the incentives that you laid out.
I'm like,
The worst thing that can happen is no one gives a flying beep and nothing happens. So you make these incentives and no one cares.
I proposed a scheme, an organizational method at one company that we both know and love dearly. And I basically built this like entire idea out to say, hey, maybe this would be a good idea. And the response I got was, everybody's going to game this. And I was like, that's the entire point. The entire point of the system is that it is gameable. And if they game it, then we win. And
We get the result that we wanted. And if we don't, we change the game.
yes. Now I will also say that, like, I am a proponent of giving the engineers feedback from the sales loop, and not feedback in the sense of the product doesn't do this, it's terrible or whatnot. No, man, if we get a big sale, give the engineers a couple $100 a piece, because boy, it's an incentive, right? If you know that you make this thing good enough and they sell it and money gets deposited into your bank account as a result, man, that feels good. That feels real good.
Yeah.
So
I think engineers would even stop before that. I think engineers like shipping stuff and getting people's hands. I think where I see a lot of companies flounder is engineers build something and it ships, but not really. Like, it ships, but no one uses it or no one pays attention to it. And that's like super demotivating. If I know that we're focusing on a few things, those few things are shipping and they're making the difference. Yeah, I don't care about a couple $100.
All right, my friend.
Let's roll with this thing.
I believe that we have rambled for a good long time, which probably means it's going to be a great episode. But humans of Earth, thank you for coming along to Will AI Snap That. I am Michael, and I am a firm believer that egos in Silicon Valley will cause people to raise prices. I'm joined as always by my co-host Thanos, and we thank you for your time. I bid you adieu.